Apparently, across the entire globe, there is only one news story. President Joe Biden pardoned his son, Hunter. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this afternoon's episode of the Nerd Avengers. Joining me today are Brian Karam, White House reporter and best-selling author, also host of Reverse Shot on Ameritrump Media, and Norm Ornstein, emeritus scholar at AEI and co-host of Words Matter podcast with Kavita Patel. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. How is everybody?
I'm doing
Yeah, Norm's reaction is definitely more relatable. So, Norm, we don't need to go on and on about this because everybody else has gone on and on about it way too much. And I kind of want to focus our ire, if you will, on the so-called never Trump Republicans and Democrats who seem to think that by doing something that, in my view, was completely reasonable given the changing situation on the ground, has destroyed his legacy, has meant that his entire presidency is felt like these are things people are actually saying. And of course, I am talking about Biden's pardon of Hunter. So, Norm, if you could walk us through that and your reaction to what, again, in my view, seems to be just giving the other side ammunition to use against us.
and some of our allies contributing to that.
Yeah.
The first thing to say is that if Kamala Harris had gotten elected, we would not be seeing this.
Nope.
Joe Biden did this not because he had planned to lie about what he was going to do with his son, but because the circumstances changed. And he knew that he had swallowed hard over what was a political prosecution in the first place, but was going to abide by it. But then he saw what Donald Trump had said, what Kash Patel had said, what he knew would come from the Justice Department. And he, under changing circumstances, pardoned his son. There are a few things to say about this, Mary. The first is a partial list of those who Donald Trump pardoned in his first term. Rod Blagojevich, Joe Arpaio, the monstrous sheriff from Arizona, Dinesh D'Souza, Bernie Kerik, felon, Paul Manafort, Russian tool, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon, George Papadopoulos, 6 members of Congress who had committed crimes, including Randy Duke Cunningham, Medicare fraudsters who basically defrauded the government of huge sums of money, other grifters along the way, the former Attorney General Matt Whitaker, and the reaction from the media at that point was, he does this stuff.
And Norm, I just want to interject quickly and remind people it was also actually convicted war criminals, I think up to 5 of them, and Charles Kushner, who's now nominated to be ambassador to France. And you alluded to this earlier, Norm. One of the most infuriating ways this is being covered is that Biden has been lying to us all along, as if actual adults can change their minds when faced with overwhelming evidence that they need to.
We have talked a lot about false equivalence. The way the media treated this, hair on fire over Joe Biden, and saying, all of these people saying, This has now given Donald Trump license to pardon the January 6th, as he calls them, hostages, violent insurrectionists, as if that's the equivalent here. And of course, to remind everybody listening and watching about Charles Kushner, not only convicted of business practices that were corrupt, but remember, this is a guy fearful that his brother-in-law would testify against him, set his brother-in-law up with a prostitute, filmed the sex act, and sent the tape to his own sister. So this is the guy not only pardoned, but going off to France in one of the cushiest jobs available in the federal government. And what does that get from the press? Crickets. But Joe Biden pardons his son. USA Today, I'm not particularly fond of a paper that, like others, chickened out and didn't endorse for president. But they did a piece today on the presidents who have pardoned family members, including Donald Trump. And nothing. There was nothing about it. It is a double standard that is taken to a level that is beyond cringeworthy.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this later, because one thing we need to start focusing on is how do we turn this around? Because as Norm said, Brian, the bigger issue in some ways is the pearl clutching of Democrats and so-called never Trump Republicans who are just, weaken us by just either not understanding what's actually happening. Like, that to me seems the most dangerous thing, or, well, maybe equally dangerous, thinking that they're appeasing somebody by jumping on the Republican bandwagon of hating on President. I don't quite get what their motives are, unless, of course, we're talking about obeying in advance, which we'll get to in a minute. But I want to play this clip from you, Brian, from Fox and Friends, and remind people that that this is typically, if you're agreeing with these people, then you might want to rethink your position.
We knew this was going to happen, but we just couldn't believe the audacious way it did happen. Number one, I think it took almost zero courage. You do it on a Sunday and then go to Angola and then take your press secretary with you. So no press conferences, just let the chips fall where they may. And then the letter that followed to explain what went into it is just full of holes and inconsistencies that I think leave him wide open and leave his party susceptible to further damage.
In that letter, he said, quote, "I have followed a simple principle. Just tell the American people the truth. No, you lied to us so many times, but about this specifically, I shouldn't be, but I am just floored at the just lie."
Oh, she's floored. And also, do you guys remember it took
hypocrisy.
the corporate media about 4 years before they would use the L word to describe Donald's statements? Joe Biden does something, again, after months of very careful consideration and acknowledging the reality that Donald is actually trying to get into key positions, people who will go after his son and him probably. And they're calling it a lie. It's just, I don't know. It's just shocking. And should I be shocked? I don't know why, but I am. I don't know. I am shocked.
At this point, you can't be shocked.
Yeah,
look, this will take a minute to unpack, and I probably am going to anger a few people saying it, but it boils down to, does the ends justify the means? That's where you think logically people are going with this. Does the end justify them? Should he do this for his son? Blah, blah, blah. He didn't lie. He did change his mind. Now you may consider that a lie, but let's unpack what really happened. He was prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and further. And everyone said, even many Donald Trump supporters said, had this been just a regular, normal citizen, these charges wouldn't have come up. They would have been dismissed. They would have been gone. So Hunter Biden was, first of all, wrongly prosecuted and through a weaponized DOJ. The nuance in this thing is very important, because what happened was, after he was prosecuted, and what happened. He's, the father said, "I'm not going to do this for the son." Then they kicked him out of the race, and then Kamala lost, and then Kash Patel was appointed, and then Donald Trump said he was going to go on a revenge tour. Now, who is going to be the first target of this? It's going to be the Biden family, and particularly Hunter, and they're going to bring up all the stuff that was dismissed before. They're going to put him through hell again. So if you don't understand why he did it, you're an idiot. This is I can't put it any other way.
There you go. Works for me.
Yeah, this is why he did it. Now, do the ends justify the means? That is up for everyone to decide. But folks, if you're going to Norm's point about false equivalency, if you're going to give him grief about this, logically, where is your consternation about what Donald Trump or every other president has done in issue, and particularly Donald Trump, in issuing pardons, and particularly with the guy he just assigned as the ambassador to France? And by the way, that's just a giant FU to Macron.
France, exactly.
That's all that was.
I hope they reject him. Sorry, you cannot send that person as your ambassador.
That's right. And the thing to understand is, with these people, this is all, the Democrats are fearful. Oh my God, how are we ever going to, it's going to be Donald Trump will do this again. Donald Trump's going to do whatever he wants anyway. And he doesn't need the justification of Joe Biden pardoning his son to go anywhere. They're going to do it. Now,
the idea that it's a slippery slope, that because Joe Biden did this, it's going to give Donald are you kidding me?
We're already over
for the last
we're in
65 years.
There's no slope to slip. We're down there. So it's done. So that's the fear from the Democrats. From the Republicans, it's gaming. They all see this as a game to be played, and they're going to win. And that's all they care about. And to the point, I mean, has anyone forgotten that, everything that those Fox and friends said on the air? Really what it amounts to is Joe Biden has no more left to give. That's it. He doesn't give a shit. He's going to do it, because at this point in time, how do you protect someone from the unprotectable? How do you make sure that they aren't prosecuted, not only to the fullest extent of the law, but beyond the fullest extent? So the slope is over with. This does point out that we have a very big problem in the United States, but it is Donald Trump.
Go ahead, Norm.
I want to, for people who don't remember or never paid attention to the Hunter story. The first is James Comer and the Republicans in the House tried everything they could to nail him on his connection to this Ukrainian company, Burisma, and got nowhere. There were two charges brought up against Hunter Biden. One was that while in the throes of the worst part of his drug addiction, he lied on a form to get a gun. A gun which it is clear he used or was contemplating using to die by suicide. Put the gun away. He had it in his possession for a day or two. Those offenses are dismissed on a regular basis or are plea bargained down to a community service kind of thing. The second was that while in the middle of that addiction, he did not pay taxes on a very substantial sum of money, and he then negotiated with the IRS and paid it back in full with interest. Those kinds of charges are not prosecuted once you have paid the money back. That's why David Weiss, who mistakenly, foolishly, Merrick Garland and Joe Biden decided to keep as the U.S. attorney in Delaware, a Trump appointee, why he originally did a plea bargain, no jail time, modest penalties, and then a Trump judge, although I think, this was not engineered, raised questions about the plea bargain. It got thrown out by David Weiss, and then he, under pressure and the criticism coming from the Trumpists, brought these criminal charges, and Merrick Garland gave him license to file the charges in California, finding a place where he knew he could get convictions and where there would be jail time with a judge who was not going to be sympathetic.
Right.
That's all of the background in this. It was entirely political and not a prosecution that would have been brought against anybody who wasn't named Biden.
And Norm, by the way, at the end of, sorry, go ahead, Mary.
Just hang on one second. And he could have faced up to 17 years in prison.
Yeah.
Because 3 of the charges were felonies, whether they were trumped up or not. And he pled guilty because he just wanted to end it. This had been going on for years and years and years. So I think, again, I'm glad you did a little bit of a deep dive there, Norm, because for people who are just looking at the headlines, well, he pled guilty to 3 felony charges and he didn't pay his taxes. And this is not, I think one of the problems, Brian, this is what the Democrats are setting up, is that they are creating a false equivalence, because they're basically saying, well, you can't criticize Donald because now Biden issued a corrupt pardon. It's not a corrupt pardon. These charges were not serious. And as Norm said, anybody, if his name had been Hunter Smith, this never would have happened. And, for Democrats to be just going on and on and on about how this is just Biden is now giving Donald permission is just obscene, honestly. And I hope that President Biden pardons everybody who could conceivably be on that Kash Patel enemies list.
I'm up for that. Because
including some people we know who may or may not be on the show today.
Right. Well, look, one of the things that, Norm, I've covered a lot of these cases in federal court over the years. One of the things that you pointed to that people should understand, in many cases, like the purchase of a gun for that particular matter, he was thinking of killing himself. There would have been mental health intervention. This would not be prosecuted. It would go to mental health first. So that didn't happen. And so it was a purely political thing that was done. What his dad did, you can argue whatever you want. You could say it was purely political. You could say others did it. It was done. If you think that in any way that this gives Donald Trump a path to pardon whomever he wants, you have mistaken what Donald Trump is, and you still are not facing the fact that he's already going to do whatever he wants. And the Democrats have got to get that through their thick head, their do-gooding, well-meaning, thick-skinned head, thin-skinned, thick head, and take this matter on and reframe the damn issue the right way it needs to be reframed. Look, every time someone points at me and goes, does the end justify the means? Should he have broken the law? I look at him and go, look, I don't know what ends you're talking about. I don't know what means you're talking about. If you're talking about the pardon for a political prosecution, yeah, I totally understand that. That's what Donald Trump has said was his reason for pardoning the people he pardoned. So it's a well-used reason for pardoning people. Now, whether or not you believe it, that's a different matter. But at the end of the day, this is not something that is unique in the annals of American history. And I want to know at this point, less about the pardon of Hunter Biden and more about the dangers of Kash Patel. Every time we have this type of introspection and coverage in the news, what are we missing? And so what we're missing right now is the subjugation of American democracy to the authoritarians that are coming into office on January 20th. Let's pay a little bit more attention to that. Could Biden have communicated this better? Yes. Everything that the Biden administration has done could be communicated better.
Biden's always been known for his ability to communicate. Well, come on.
They've spent 4 years communicating poorly. Get over yourself and move. One of the reasons why he's not president again is because he communicated poorly. So move on and deal with the issues at hand. And the issues at hand are the Republicans usurping democracy and using this as an excuse, of course. But it was already there, folks.
Yeah, I want to take a look at, first of all, remind everybody that Donald has been talking about pardoning the January 6th insurrectionists for months. It was like part of his platform, for God's sakes. And as Norm said earlier, he's been referring to them as hostages and patriots for much longer than that. So again, give me a break. Donald Trump needs permission. But I think I want to show you a tweet because I think this is the right way of looking at this. If people cannot see Biden pardoning his son Hunter as meeting the moment, then they're the ones out of touch, not Biden. The double standards are outrageous. Do they not see the lawlessness that's coming? And there was another tweet, I don't have it here, but basically that we could also look at Biden's pardon, which is definitely not something that he would be comfortable with. He's an institutionalist, what have you. But the fact that he is seeing how dangerous the situation is, that he's bearish on how things are going to go, is equally ominous. And we've talked about Kash Patel, but I want to step back for a second. And yeah, we'll talk about how dangerous Kash Patel is, but we cannot lose sight of the fact that the primary danger here is this, that Donald is firing his second FBI director, Christopher Wray. Why is that dangerous? Because you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to. I mean, Norm, there's a reason FBI directors are appointed for 10-year terms to keep them outside of the bipartisanship. And in firing, the firing of James Comey was a corrupt one. The firing of Christopher Wray will be even more corrupt, especially given the person he wants to replace him with, because he wants the FBI to be his personal avenue of vengeance, right? So why are people not understanding that the initial and potentially more serious danger is the firing of Christopher Wray, and why is he allowed to get away with that?
When he fired Comey after he demanded personal loyalty, not loyalty to the Constitution. And I'm not going to have much sympathy for Comey, who was responsible for Trump getting elected in the first place in 2016 and has never apologized for it or expressed any second thoughts.
Nope.
But you're exactly right, Mary. The idea here, and it's also been the norm in the Justice Department, the norm that was broken by Trump twice in his first term, that law enforcement has to be separate from the political desires and whims and motives of a president, of elected officials. So the response to J. Edgar Hoover, an FBI director out of control, but also one manipulating with presidents, was to create this 10-year term, spanning different presidencies. But, it's not even firing Christopher Wray. I actually think that some of the things that were done by the FBI during the Biden administration on his watch, including the corruption of the New York FBI.
Yes, definitely.
Which actually, in its dynamic with James Comey, was responsible for the last minute super investigation of emails that brought her downfall. But it's Kash Patel, who has said in the past that he wanted to, on the first day as FBI director, shut down the headquarters, reopen it the next day by taking the 7,000 people working at the FBI and turn them loose for his own purposes, who is a conspiracy theorist, a dark, dark man, and an utter grifter as well, who touted a product that would save you from the vaccines that you took on COVID. That was just a complete sham. He's a Dr. Oz in the making.
Yeah.
And an utterly dangerous figure. The idea that he will be there, and by the way, it's possible that he could be blocked, but then what would happen is Trump would put him in as the deputy, which doesn't require Senate confirmation, and then fire Wray and basically leave Patel in charge without going through a confirmation hearing. The corruption here is immense, and I don't see front page stories about this. I don't see DEFCON 1 by all the television networks, including all of the cable networks across the board, the way we're seeing it with the pardon of Hunter Biden. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, and one of the most alarming things, Brian, and again, shouldn't be surprised or shocked by this, is the extent to which Senate Republicans seem not to understand what their job is. You have Senate Republicans literally saying, "Hey, it's Donald's nominee, and he can have whatever people in positions of power, in cabinet positions rather, that he wants." It's like, no, like literally Chuck Schumer is begging the incoming majority leader, John Thune, to look who's here. How are you?
Hey,
my face is 70% recovered. I could do this. I
Good.
could smile now.
Look at you.
You're
I'm so
looking
happy you're here.
fantastic.
I didn't realize you were going to be able to make it, but
You look
Waj
marvelous.
really is now in the house. Waj, we are bemoaning the fact that, our very, very, very fragile democracy is in the hands of Senate Republicans. And I was just saying that many Senate Republicans just don't understand that advice and consent is something that they're supposed to be doing, not just rubber stamping every single nominee, no matter how egregious. And, Chuck Schumer is literally now begging John Thune, incoming majority leader, to hold his party to the advice and consent role. But I'm not even somebody as egregious, and Norm went through the list of all of the reasons Kash Patel shouldn't be able to work anywhere. Quite honestly, he's deeply deranged and dangerous person who is going to feel that he has one job and one job only: revenge. So
Boots.
well, that's a matter of taste. I would disagree with you.
I set you up for that one.
The assless chaps were a nice touch. But anyway, sorry.
I had to set you up for that one. I loved it. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah. So I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm tired. I'm still tired. So Waj, when you have a lot of senators coming out and not just saying, well, whatever Donald wants, Donald gets, but Patel's great. The FBI needs a shakeup, and let's ignore the fact that Donald is corruptly firing yet another FBI director because Biden pardoned his son. Let's focus on that incredibly unimportant news. So what do we do?
So consent, Republicans really aren't into consent too soon.
No, because it's evergreen.
You can take that many ways, and you're right about all of them.
And in all seriousness, if you, it's connected, but if you look at this is only Tuesday. I thought it was like Friday already, but if you just look at the recent allegation against Pete Hegseth, right, the Secretary of Defense pick, like 3 whopper stories that came out over the weekend that have already been forgotten. First and foremost, his mother sent one of the most damning emails I've ever read a mother sent, where she called him a sexual abuser, right? Abuser of women. She admits that she sent that letter. You could read it in the New York Times. Number 2, Hegseth apparently yelled.
Has he ever met his mother?
No, apparently when they reached out to her, she said she regretted it, but she admits that she wrote it. In 2016,
I made a bad joke that nobody got. We'll just move on. We'll move on. She was a coffee boy.
In 2016, he yelled "Kill all Muslims" repeatedly at a bar. He was dropped from nonprofits as a result of a history of sexual and financial abuse. Then there's Kash Patel, like you mentioned, previous persons, Matt Gaetz, RFK. And what Senate Republicans aren't realizing, just like many in corporate media with the sane-washing of the pardon and all these stories, is that if you obey in advance and you bend the knee, what you're doing is empowering a vindictive, cruel, venal leader in the form of Donald Trump, who was ready to throw his own vice president, Mike Pence, to the wolves, literally was willing to throw him to death. And the reason why he was willing to throw Mike Pence to death was because Mike Pence was a willing reek who bent the knee for 4 years. At the last second, Mary, he's like, Dan Quayle in Justice Ludick told me I have to do my job and actually verify this election that Donald Trump lost and Joe Biden won. Let me do my job. And Donald Trump said, oh, really? You're not going to obey me? Okay. Some of these nuts who are my MAGA insurrectionists, you can go kill him. And so what Senate Republicans are doing, and even corporate media and even the billionaires and even a lot of the hosts, they believe that by bending the knee, going along with Donald Trump, giving him more and more power, that they will be safe. And what Senate Republicans will realize soon enough is that in addition to destroying the norms, the checks and the balances, the separation of power, this man, who is completely vindictive and cruel, will turn on them, Mary.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is feeding a beast that will ultimately eat you. And I think finally politically they're going for all the power. We don't know in America, right? America is a wild country. It's very unpredictable. Americans are, fickle, as we've clearly seen from 2020 to 2024. These people are so egregiously bad. And I'm glad Norm talked about how bad Kash Patel is, right? Like, go down the list. Hegseth, Patel, RFK Jr. Like, these are historically flawed, corrupt, incompetent people that when they get, God forbid, power, and not just any power, they're not just advisors. FBI, people of color have a troubled relationship with the FBI, but it is still the preeminent law enforcement agency in America.
And historically, so do all Democrats.
Yeah.
Right? It's fascinating that Democrats are now the party trying to shore up support for our, the FBI and the CIA, et cetera. It's just shocking that it's Republicans that are attacking these institutions.
Well, even the health and human services, yes, the establishment is broken. Yes, these institutions are corrupt. But what I'm hearing from a lot of privileged people now, folks, I don't know about you, but a lot of folks who voted for Trump or didn't vote for Kamala Harris, they're coming out of the woodwork, so I'm talking to them. Many of them, not all of them, they're not the poor ones, Mary. They're upper middle class, cul-de-sac folks who want to burn down the establishment. But what they don't realize is how it's like for poor people in the middle class, because they've never been poor. So they can afford this chaos, Mary, if that makes sense.
Well, they think they can.
But
wait, Watch, I have a question for you.
They think they'll be okay, and they won't.
No.
Is anybody more establishment or swamp than Donald? To call somebody who was in the White House for 4 years anti-establishment is just, I don't know. It's kind of mind-blowing. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
it's a story that they sold. But look, this is, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's all bullshit. It's bullshit. I know it's bullshit. Brian knows it's bullshit. Norm knows it's bullshit. Donald was born with a silver spoon and a golden spoon in his mouth. He squandered away daddy's hundreds of millions of dollars. He literally is born from the swamp. He lives in Mar-a-Lago. He was in Trump Towers. He has sex with porn stars. He played around with Jeffrey Epstein and billionaires and golfed. He is the embodiment of the establishment. His best buddy now is the richest man on earth, Elon Musk. Billionaires are going to get tax cuts. But what the Republicans did is they know how to sell a bullshit story, and they have a right-wing ecosystem that echoes it. That's the problem.
Well,
so go ahead, Brian.
They're all part of the game that I talked about earlier. The Republicans are gaming it. The people are buying it. That's the game. And so when you talk to these people that are mega, and you sit down and talk to them, it's not going to be that bad for you. Come on, let it rest. See where this goes. It's all going to be fine.
Right.
Because to them, it's a game. They won. Sit back and take it and watch where it goes, because they are completely, as the man said, it's easier to fool someone than to tell them that they've been fooled. So in that foolishness, there's no arguing with that mentality. At the end of the day, their game, they're playing the game. You're trying to talk reality, but what they will turn around and say to you is, oh, you're just butt sore. Oh, you're a Karen. Oh, you're a liberal libtard, without ever once even thinking about what it is that you're saying. And then they will turn around, deflecting it, and say you're doing the same thing to them. So then you have to go and you start talking facts. They'll destroy every fact that's out there. No, the earth doesn't revolve around the sun. No, it's not around Earth. No, chemtrails are real. It's all about BS, because that's all. Once you have been bought and sold and are part of that cult, it's damn near impossible to get you to think otherwise outside of it. So the appeal has to be to those, again, take a look at all the people that aren't involved in the system who are affected by the system, the middle class, what's left of it. I grew up buying a Christmas tree $1 a foot. Today, we go out to buy a Christmas tree and it's $150. Where the hell is it? People are going, it's all about it's all about the money. It's all about the pricing. Fine. If it's about the pricing, then where is it coming from? Take a look at the monopolies in this country. The nuance in their arguments they cannot sustain, because everything that they complain about, from the price of eggs to the price of oil, is run by large companies that have destroyed the middle class. And the Republicans, who are part and parcel of it, have convinced others that it's the Democrats doing it.
Well, listen, I think it is true that the one of the biggest factors in this election, or wasn't what was happening, but people's perception of what was happening, right? Which is very dangerous. And that then covers over a lot of structural damage that's being done. And I just want to mention this briefly. We can talk about it more, but it's just sort of, to me, it's a sign of things to come if we don't get a handle on it. In North Carolina, first of all, you could argue that the Democrats lost or did not regain a majority in the House because of corrupt gerrymandering in North Carolina. And now, in the waning days of the Republican supermajority in the state legislature, they are under the guise of hurricane relief legislation. They are in advance of the new Democratic governor and attorney general coming into office, completely decimating the power of those two offices. So that's the kind of thing that's happening. And that will have an impact on, as we saw in the House, in federal elections. So I guess I want to sort of start framing this in terms of what can we do? And Norm, before we get to a conversation about Democratic leadership shakeups in the House and what's happening in the Senate, I want to play this clip from Jasmine Crockett.
I'm eager to get your take on this because, look, I mean, you have actually congratulated President Biden. Yeah. You seem to be, at least publicly, in the minority among Democrats in the House. Why do you think you are in the minority here, and is it sincere?
First of all, it is sincere. And, I can't say why my colleagues are acting the way that they are. I can say that the American people are tired of us bringing a butter knife to a real fight, a real war.
Yes, indeed, Norm. We are very tired of the pencil eraser against the AK-47.
She's great, by the way.
She's great.
And, Mary, you mentioned North Carolina, where they are also probably trying to eradicate the election of a liberal to the North Carolina Supreme Court. This is an assault on democracy and fundamental values and norms, and it doesn't even make the front pages of any newspaper, where Hunter Biden's pardon does. And it's another example of how our media are failing us. We have outrages every day, not just from Donald Trump, but around the country, and they go nowhere. It's a tough time. And as a psychologist, I think you would certainly resonate to what we've seen with cognitive dissonance. All this research done now of people who decided, because they were angry with the status quo, that they were going to vote for Trump, and then denied the reality right in front of their eyes, their brain synapses adjusting, so that even if you confront them with what Trump himself said, they would find a way to get beyond it, deny it, say he didn't mean it, and justify it. And what we know is large numbers of these people are going to wake up one day and discover their lives are in tatters because of what Donald Trump did. And they're going to be well, I didn't think he would actually do that. I will take you back to that headline in the Detroit News after the election. Muslim Americans who voted for Trump now worried about his policies and appointments. Duh, because they were in complete denial in their rage against Biden and what the Israelis were doing in Gaza. And they're not alone. I mean, there are millions of people who think they're not going to get deported. Their relatives are not going to get deported. We're going to teach them a lesson. Well, he's not really going to do the things that he said he would do. Well, the tariffs won't really happen. They won't affect me. And unfortunately, the sane washing by our media and the unwillingness to focus on what he is doing, not just what he said he would do, is just beyond disgraceful.
It's an inability.
And I mean, we could definitely and should definitely talk about the psychology of the American voter at some point. I mean, one of the most fundamental problems is that people hate being wrong. So they will do whatever they can to make themselves right. And you know, Norm, you said some of these people are going to wake up and, you know, just be horrified at what Donald Trump has done to them. A lot of those people will still blame Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, that's
even if there's direct evidence that it was
that's what they'll do with the economy. That's what they'll blame.
That's one of the biggest reasons where we are now is just they are incapable of processing that information, because, you know, being as wrong as they've been is humiliating, and nobody likes being humiliated. So while we see Nancy Pelosi making a push to shake things up, and we see our friend, the great Jamie Raskin, challenging Jerry Nadler to chair the be the lead Democrat in the Judiciary Committee, and a lot of other, I guess, younger. I mean, certainly not Gen Z, but, you know, younger Gen X, older millennial representatives making moves, which is good, because I think in the House that will make a difference, considering the margin might be 2-2. With, I think it'll be 217 to 215 until the people that Donald has, you know, if they get approved, the Republican margin will shrink. And they've already shown us that they're incapable of doing anything with such a narrow margin. But then you turn to the Senate, and it looks like nothing's going to change, except, of course, the Republicans will have the majority. But Schumer is still, you know, minority leader. Dick Durbin is still the whip. Dick Durbin will still be what do they call? What is it called when the leader of the minority party on a committee is called? The
ranking minority member.
Thank you, Norm. Yes, thank you, ranking minority. And I don't know. I'm a little worried about that.
As you should be. I think there's, you know, I'm getting in trouble from both sides for these two comments to describe Trump voters and also Democrats. I believe, and I think the most people who are watching probably will agree with me, is that Democrats need new leadership. New does not necessarily mean young.
Right.
I'm talking about bold leadership. They need fighters. The current fighters that they have are not made for this moment. They're not built for this fight. This includes Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi as well. I'm sorry, God bless her. I don't think she is the future of the Democratic Party.
But she knows she's not. I mean, she stepped down from leadership.
Nadler, all right, Dingell, Jasmine Crockett ran to head the communications for Democrats. She lost to Debbie Dingell. Already ominous sign. Jasmine Crockett is the type of fighter that we need. She takes them head on. She's bold, she's robust, she's great on camera, and they decide to go with Debbie Dingell of Michigan. All right, Jamie Raskin, another fighter, very passionate, extremely informed, willing to take the fight on. He's going up against Nadler. Let's see what happens. Schumer, you know, sitting there making these backroom deals, right? All these people want restoration instead of reform. Let me repeat that. They want restoration instead of reform. They want to go back to the good old days, Mary, right? Where they can pat each other on the back and drink rum and make those backroom deals. Right? I don't know. I don't drink alcohol. Whatever they drink.
Make rum.
Bourbon.
Pretty sure it's all made in
They're not Jack Sparrow, although they are pirates.
I don't know anything. I'm a teetotaler. I drink chai. Okay, bourbon. And so it's one of the situations is that you are going to get destroyed, right? Because as we have seen, Mary, this is not our daddy's or granddaddy's Republican Party. This is not the party of Mitt Romney. This is not the party of John McCain. In fact, John McCain and Mitt Romney, who are the presidential nominees for the Republican Party, have now been ostracized, Mary, from the Republican Party, right? So what you need is fighters. You need people like AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Mallory McMurrow, Jamie Raskin. But the problem is right now, and this is going to be a major problem for the country for the next 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 years, is the Democratic establishment is wealthy, it's corporate, it's white, it's old, and they punch down
against like the Republicans, doesn't it?
They punch down against their own base as much as the Republicans do. You never see Republicans. Look, Republicans have kooks, freaks, nuts, conspiracy theorists, but what do the Republicans do? They batten down the hatches, they lift them up. You see Chuck Schumer literally throwing Ilhan Omar under the bus. I interviewed her, and she goes, I get death threats. He threw me under the bus in front of AIPAC. Ilhan Omar, regardless of what you think about her, campaigned her butt off for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, right? So you're seeing Democrats blame the left, blame liberals, punch down, do all this bullshit analysis about Kamala was too woke. What are you talking about? Never used the word Latinx, talked about owning a gun, right? You literally see Democrats repeating Republican talking points, ceding the ground to them, moving to the center, which, as we have talked about, shifts the Overton window to the right. They're going to be completely alienated from this base that stayed at home. If Democratic voters literally just came out to vote, she would have beat them despite all of the disadvantages that she had. And I think, and this is where I pissed off MAGA voters yesterday with the post that went viral. And I'm curious to see what
Can posts still go viral on Twitter? I didn't know that was a thing.
Because it pissed off all the MAGA
members.
I said, folks, stop bothering to reach out and win over the Trump voter. For 9 years, they voted for a corrupt criminal. I've been in these right-wing swamps. They've been radicalized by right-wing media. Instead, focus on the 65%. It's still going viral. Oh, how people are pissed, especially white center-left and white contrarian writers telling me to go to reach out to Trump voters, right? So
I've been saying that since 2020. Seriously, if somebody's going to vote for, back then I was like, if somebody's going to vote for him for the second time, don't waste your breath.
Exactly.
Brian, I just want to go back to Norm really quickly, because Norm, a lot of these players in a way the rest of us don't. And I just want to get your sense of what the internal dialogues are about where the party needs to go. And again, listen, for me, it's not about the individual person. It's what they're willing to do. Like, I don't want to hear Chuck Schumer talk about bipartisanship. If Chuck Schumer came out and said, we're the party of opposition, we do not make common cause with fascists, stay minority leader. That's cool with me. I don't care. But we're not seeing that. And that's what worries me. So are there discussions about finding another way, whether it's with the same leadership, but just having, changing the emphasis, changing the expectations, changing the tactics and the strategies?
Among some, but not where it matters. And let me take on this Democratic Senate, which has a month to go in its majority. Where are the hearings, the pre-confirmation hearings on these monstrous nominees? What we get is the sort of plaintiff, well, they really ought to do FBI background checks. You do the hearings and point out where these people are coming from and what they're about to do. Where are the hearings now on what I call the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the nominees from RFK Jr. at HHS to the nominees for the Centers for Disease Control, the NIH and the FDA, who are going to devastate health and cause deaths across America? Do the hearings now, because they're not going to happen after January 3rd. Where is the hearing that points out how blatantly illegal, given civil service protections enshrined in law, Schedule F is? Where are the hearings on the consequences of eliminating the Department of Education for special education around the country, including a whole lot of people, the kids of whom have those needs, who are going to suddenly find themselves out of luck? And then, we have Schumer and Durbin saying, well, we're going to confirm as many judges as we can. One, they cut a deal to give up 4 Court of Appeals positions without a fight because they got the approval to do on a relative fast track. We'll see if it happens. 12 district court nominees. So they traded. It's like the trade for Herschel Walker in the NFL. You give up a lot for not much. Now, we also know, and I'll take this back a little further, I hadn't realized this, 17 judgeships where Biden never nominated anybody because the rationale being Republicans from red states would block them, presumably using the blue slip. And we have Durbin having said, well, we should keep the blue slip because we don't know who will win. And if we give it up, they'll give it up, as if they won't give it up in a nanosecond the first time a Democrat tries to block a Trump judge.
Same thing with the filibuster, right, Norm?
So we're giving them, and they're probably not going to deal with the filibuster because they don't have a lot of legislative things that they want to do.
Right, good point.
For now, but that may come at some point. What I'm hoping, Hakeem Jeffries, who I think is a strong leader, and I think the House leadership team, the formal leadership team, is a strong one. The committee leadership, Waj dealt with it. I've known Jerry Nadler for decades. He is a smart, wonderful guy. It's time for a change, and Jamie is the guy to do it, and we really need that on the Judiciary Committee. But, the House is going to be, for a moment, 220 to 215.
Right.
Then it'll be immediately on January 3rd, 219 to 215, because Matt Gaetz won't be there. And within a couple of months, it'll be 217 to 215. And all it'll take is one more variant with some of the Republican House members who didn't lie about not being vaccinated and who may, end up in trouble.
Right.
Democrats have to have a plan for what might be 2 months or 3, where they actually have a majority to seize that moment and do something with it, including passing a reconciliation bill that'll make it much harder for the Republicans to do those tax cuts. They'll get around it, but it'll be much tougher. And I don't see this at the moment. I sure hope it happens, but I think they're still either in shock, or in the Senate, it's Democrats continuing to believe that it's the old boys club when it is nothing like that.
And if they do believe that, Brian, then I don't know what to say. And if they're in shock, then they clearly haven't been paying attention. Like, aren't you always supposed to prepare for both eventualities? Just like journalists write up 2 stories before Election Day. If so-and-so wins, or if the other person wins, right? So they're ready to go. And Democrats should have been prepared for this, even if they didn't think it was going to happen. We didn't think it was going to happen, but you have to be prepared. And, they have more insight than we do, especially to Norm's point, into who their colleagues are. The idea that they don't believe what they're seeing, it's just shocking to me. And, one of the most alarming, I agree with everything Norm said, and it is just quite gobsmacking at this point. But the whole, well, yeah, of course he should have the FBI vet these people. Okay, but who's going to make them?
That's right.
Like, why isn't that a law, first of all? But it's not. So who's going to make him? And if nobody's going to make him, then, as Norm said, do it yourselves and do it publicly and loudly.
Well, I don't know what you're going to expect out of a Democrat and Republican House and Senate that owes its existence to the donor class in both parties that give to both sides. Right. So if you really want to take a look at the problems, you're going to have to, like I say, bust up the media monopolies. You're going to have to take the money out of politics, because money is now, I know that's pie in the sky. It's going to piss people off, but folks, that's the truth. You want better politicians, you got to get rid of it. So if you want to stand up for anything, stand up for that, and then you can reform and elect the people that you want. As far as leadership in the House and the Senate, you need better leadership. I don't care if it's younger or older, just freaking better on both sides. They'll let the best person have the job. My God, Jamie Raskin, I've known for years. I know a lot of people in the House. I talked to a lot of people in the Senate. They are all on both sides, Republican and Democrat, upset with the aged backward thinking, but they will play along with it for money and power.
That's right.
But if given the chance, they would do something different. And finally, as far as to what you're going to say about, I understand the feeling and the frustration with MAGA people, but I'm always going to leave the door open to speak with them for one simple reason. If you think that they're going to come to terms at some point in time with that they've been screwed by Donald Trump, if at some point in time they do become aware of the fact that they are screwed and they've got no place to go to talk to others, then they're going to go back to the same shit. They're just going to find someone else to represent the same crap who will sell them the same bill of goods under a different label, under a different little bonnet, and tell you, hey, Donald Trump was wrong, but I'm right. I'm going to support you, and I'm going to take care of the working class, when really they're going to screw them as much as Donald Trump has. So you have to leave your ear open to them. Now, I'm not going to sit there and argue with them. I mean, I cannot waste my time with that. But if they want to approach me and say, "Hey, Brian, I'm really upset with Trump. I figured out he's a crackhead, bot. What do I do?" Well, then I'll say, "Okay." Then we got to.
I agree with that, Brian. I do.
Yeah, you got to be able to do that, because the divisiveness in this country must end. The money in politics is what drives it. The money in the media drives it. Lack of education drives it. At the end of the day, if you aren't open to changing
information siloing drives a lot of it.
And that's all about money. I get so sick of people going, "Oh, it's a liberal media." No, it's the media that you'll buy. We're entertainment, folks. If you think it's information, you're an idiot. And
all right, whoa, okay. You're just, and
by the way, the door's open, so come on.
For those of you who were sleepy. Listen, it's about money, but it's also about where money goes and doesn't go. And that's the fight that we continue to have as we try to expand independent media to fill the void left by traditional legacy corporate media. All right, so we have a lot of work to do, and I think that's a conversation we need to keep having, right? What are Democrats going to do? How do we change this party? I personally am, and I think I'm allowed to do this, and I think it's official. I'm nominating Norm to be Senate Minority Leader. I actually really wanted to be president, but I'm not sure I can do anything about that. But Senate Minority Leader. And Norm will get us the Senate back in 2 years. I know it. So congratulations, Norm, if you're willing to accept.
Given where the Senate is and who's there, I respectfully decline.
Yeah, well, I tried. Yeah. All right, so I want to end with this. In other news,
he will not run. If elected, he will not serve.
Yeah.
That's right. In other news, I think this is appropriate to end on. Brain rot is Oxford English Dictionary's word of the year. Okay, I don't know if any of you know this. I love the Oxford English Dictionary. It is one of the greatest human achievements. It's the most extraordinary thing. I actually have the compact one, which is still enormous. But isn't brain rot a phrase?
Yeah, but Barry, you need to contact the Oxford English Dictionary and have them include in the definition of the weave dementia.
Brain rot, the weave, dementia, synonyms. They're synonyms.
Yeah, synonyms, exactly.
So I saw that and I was like, that tracks. That totally tracks. All right, well, thank you guys for being here. Thanks to everybody who's watching, to all of our excellent moderators, and to everybody who donated. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we count on you. So seriously, your donations do a lot of heavy lifting around here. Please don't forget, like the videos, share them, and subscribe to the channel. It's free. There's also a bell you can ring, or actually click on. So you can get alerted every time there are new videos. Waj reminded me it's Tuesday. I actually thought it was Thursday, which is probably not a good sign.
I thought it was
But it's Tuesday,
January.
so we'll be back here live noon Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. And thanks, of course, to Mercedes, our phenomenal producer, and of course, Waj, Brian, Norm. Thank you all so much.
Mary, but if you can see, a lot of people don't know. If you're looking at this at YouTube right now, right underneath the video, you'll see the Mary Trump. If you click on that, you will be able to subscribe. And to the right of that, you'll see a thumbs up or a thumbs down. The thumbs up, for those who don't know, is the like button. So press that. And the more likes you get, that's when the elves are fed in the algorithm. If you go to the right a little bit, you'll see share. As soon as she posts this video, which will be like in a minute, if you share it on Twitter, on Blue Sky, come to Blue Sky. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Facebook, email. The elves really love it, and it increases the engagement. And then if you go to the right of that, you'll see a little box with the ... right? It's like 3 periods. Click on that. And the second button, you'll see a $sign inside of a heart. Now, you're probably thinking, what is that $sign inside of the heart? That's how you give tips to Mary. And that's how you could give $1, $2, $5, $10. And I know, some people have given some money.
Trillion.
Yeah, and look, all that money goes a long way, because people don't realize that this is all on Inshallah money. Mary started this in the summer. And so those tips are basically donations. They go straight to Mary Trump Media. They help pay Mercedes or Spinderella. And we have to get Mary to 200,000 subscribers. Have you gotten to 200 yet, Mary?
No, we're gunning for 250. We're at
okay. Now we're going for
250.
And by the time you get to 250, that's like when that's the game changer. 250 is when you tip over. And so Mary's almost there. Mary started it from scratch. Me and Danielle are starting it. Brian's starting it from scratch. It's all based on Inshallah money. And it's all based upon you guys helping us out. So if you can donate, thank you. Like this. Look at that, Rhonda. You just did it. Thank you so
Rhonda.
much. It goes a long way. Every like, every share, every subscribe, and every tip goes a long, long way. And we're building something from the ground up because, as you have seen, people are fleeing MSNBC, they're fleeing CNN, and they desperately want a place for informed commentary where people give them the truth
Twitter.
and don't sane wash or whitewash. So I'm doing this because Mary's terrible at self-promotion, but we're all terrible at self-promotion.
And I'm a terrible tour guide as well.
Yeah, she's a horrible, we're all bad capitalists, unfortunately, but we all are great Americans. So thank you all for watching.
Thank you, Watch. That's awesome. And also remember, Fox News numbers are going up. So we've got to combat that as well. So again, thank you, Funny 4450. To everybody, we will see you back here in a couple of days. In the meantime, please stay safe, be kind to yourselves. Take care. Bye.